All right. My mic is on. Hello, everyone. As always, we will be talking about all kinds of stuff in terms of FCing, wherever the conversation goes. But for today, I specifically want to talk about bombers, and then obviously, like, what else would you talk about if you have Sieku on, right? So to just give you guys a quick introduction. So Chossuh has been on before twice. Episode 69, legendary episode, right?
Hey.
Very nice. Horde FC and CEO of Capital Fusion, which is a corp in Horde. Yeah, in general, like FC for the bad guys, right? Yeah. And then the second guest that most people, I'm gonna guess, most people outside like FCing or test probably don't know necessarily, right? Not super outspoken.
Yeah, probably not.
Not super outspoken, not like, not looking for attention or whatever. Just doing his little sneaky bomb runs, right? So Sieku is a test FC and probably one of the most feared bomber FCs in EVE, probably all time. I don't know like a specific bomber FC. I wouldn't be able to actually name one. You know what? I would put a boat in there somewhere. Maybe not the same caliber, but he's very known for bombing, right? But other than that, I think it's a very small list, and I think Sieku is pretty much on the top of it.
Yeah, I agree. I've never seen Boat do a bombing fleet personally, but maybe I'm just not paying attention.
It's easy to be good if no one bombs. Like,
Yeah,
there's no competition.
We will talk about that in a second because, I mean, bombers have been nerfed recently, like over the last maybe year, maybe 2 years. They like constantly got a little of a nerf. Then first it was the bomb damage and the EHP. Then you had the formations that really didn't nerf the bombs itself, but the opportunities, right? So that's what we wanted to talk about anyway. And then now the news came in with the warp core stabilizers and the what's it called, nullification changes. That was kind of it was coincidence, so perfect timing actually to have you guys on. So yeah, I think you both have strong opinions about the bomber nerfs that happened in the last like year or so. So what are your thoughts on that? The EHP and stuff. Maybe you want to talk people through like what actually happened there.
Yeah, so I can go ahead, Chossuh. Do you want to start?
No, you go ahead.
So recently, there's been a number of changes. I made a Reddit post kind of detailing some of those changes about it. But yeah, a lot of the changes recently have been not like directly against bombers. I mean, some of them have, but a lot of the changes have just like impacted how you bomb things. So with the proposed changes, like nullification is a really interesting mechanic. If you need to decloak first to activate the module, that opens up a bunch of different mechanics that don't feel super overpowered in my opinion. And then regarding the warp core stabilization change, if it's on bombers, great, that's fine. But I think there was a thought to take away the warp core stab on bombers, which is where I created the Reddit thread about that, discussing like how dangerous it would be to remove that mechanic. And I know there's been a lot of pushback, but I think that'd be a huge negative change, would be to remove the ability to even have bombers core stabbed at all. And I know a lot of people don't even use them, but I think they should. And in large scale bombings in the current meta, it's pretty critical.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I always run into the problem we have so many different bomber fits. A lot of people just don't give a shit. They're like, I've got a bomb launcher, that's fine. They don't care. Like, oh, am I agile? Do I have the extra warp speed that our standard bomber fit actually should have? Do I have the step on there? Like they're like, AB, MWD, like what's the difference? They're just winging it.
It's actually quite critical as well, the bomb fit, because like bombers are actually quite slow to align. So if you do like a align speed style bomber, I think it aligns in like 4.5 seconds. And so if you land and then you do a bomb run and then you get kind of you've got 4.5 seconds, and to realign, let's say you don't have a warp out, you have to just pick someone to align, pick somewhere to align to, and then warp off there. It's very easy to actually catch them if you just have an entire fleet just spam locking them and stuff. So
especially in
I can see-
tie-dye, where you get more reaction time. Almost every fleet nowadays has new bros in frigates, so most of them have a tackle, so it's dangerous as heck too.
Yeah, tie-dye bombing, right? In big fights, obviously that's where the tie-dye is. That's always like, oh my god, the patience you need for that, and and then for like anyone who ever plans on doing it, and I think Sieku, you can probably talk about that too. It's like if you ignore results, especially in tie-dye, if you ignore 1,000 results,
you can't. Don't do
dude.
that. It's gonna break your client.
You will hover over it sooner or later, and then your client will just crash, basically, right? Because that wants
I save sig results instead, because it's the only way to do it in tie-dye. Is if you ignore or like whatever is gonna break your client.
Yeah, bookmarks show up pretty quick actually in tie-dye, which is kind of nice. So I
usually confirm my probe results with a bookmark.
Yeah, and it's just like it's a different kind of ball game suddenly in tie-dye when you want to bomb, right? It's just completely different to like what you want usually do, like just speed. No, speed is not really the problem anymore, right? Now it's precision and like you picking the right moment, really.
And there's also the issue of as soon as you decloak, everyone sees you, and there's so much more time to react in tie-dye. So in a normal bomb run, you line, you bomb, and then you warp all pretty quick. So that way the enemy doesn't have as much time to react. In tie-dye, it's 10% slower, right? So everyone can see your bomber, everyone can lock you and try to shoot you as well in tie-dye. It's a lot easier to lose them that way.
Yeah, should maybe mention that if you die after launching your bomb, the bomb doesn't explode.
True, which is another really big issue.
Yeah.
And you can only do 6 per angle too, so it's like, and then you have to worry about defenders and then the range and distances. There's all these other issues, especially in tie-dye, that makes it all worse because there's 1,000 people on a 500-kilometer grid or whatever. So even if you do warp in at 30, you're still probably really close to someone else. So it's definitely a challenge.
It's very similar to Snatch or like Stukas. When we ran Stukas a lot in tie-dye, they never really worked, and the reason is everyone has perfect time to react, and like that concept is basically, it's based on surprising people, right? And speed and like making them react quickly and make mistakes and all that stuff. It just doesn't happen in tie-dye, right? There's so much time, you lose so many people so quickly.
And it takes forever to pod yourself and reship too. It's not like you just die and then you just reship and bridge in. It's you gotta die, then you gotta pod yourself, which takes forever. Then you gotta get reshipped, get a sign on bridge, and then warp in. It's a huge issue that isn't a simple matter of you die, oh well, reship.
Yeah.
And you also only have like 15 to 20 people ever on my bombing squad, so it's like 3 to 4 squads. But so you lose 1 or 2 bombers, that's like 10% of your force. So it's a huge impact.
That's one of the main reasons why I keep saying people don't understand the problem with tie-dye. I mean, it's not tie-dye, right? We obviously know that, the game is better with tie-dye than without, because otherwise it would be lag. But when I say it, just to be clear, I don't hate tie-dye. I hate like what causes tie-dye, really. But whenever I say like if the servers would be so like on top of it that we wouldn't need tie-dye, it would be a completely different game, especially in big fights, right? Like what we now see, like the Papi guys jump into 3-D, poke some stuff, then 2 fleets clash, and what dies? Like 10 bill max, maybe 20 bill, maybe it goes up to 30, exactly. And then but it was 1,500 people or so, right? And then 30 bill die. It's like peanuts, really, right? But if there was no tie-dye and these bomb fleets would be there, and like there would be a little Stuka wing maybe, or something, like you could do all kinds of fast-paced like murder doctrines, right? It just
we'd have more bomb squads.
You would have,
like right now it's usually just me.
The grid would look completely different. It would completely change everything. The whole meta would be different, because now you have to think about, okay, like you don't want to get surprised. Maybe you want to go with like more beefy stuff, like battleships, maybe, spread them out, warp information and stuff like this. And then you have like little wings doing all kinds of stuff. Like maybe you have 100 Hecates just warping onto shit, blasting like Logi wings. Who knows, right? If everything works perfectly, who knows what would the meta look like? I don't know.
Yeah, also I think cap fights would become much more like difficult as well, because suddenly they become much faster paced, right? because you have like so much buffer available to you to make decisions and that sort of thing. But if
I would argue you would see more supers willing to jump in, because now you can jump in, nuke the shit out of these guys, align out, and then pow, you're gone, right? While before you might just get stuck in tie-dye, which is how, for example, Shines lost his Titan like ages ago. And you know, you're stuck in tie-dye and there's a bubble up. Well, that bubble holds 2 minutes in real time, but actually it's like half an hour you're gonna be sitting there. So it would change the game entirely.
It would be nice,
if,
wouldn't it?
If they keep nullifiers on bombers, then like that tie-dye bubble fest becomes less of an issue. But again, if you need to decloak to use it, then it's like much less useful.
But
so like I did some tests recently with this nullified bomber, some guys in my corp did as well, and basically, so the way it currently works is, I think the idea of it working is that you have a module on in your low slot, sorry, that you activate it and it gives you 12 seconds or 15 seconds of
notification.
Ability to notification, exactly, depending on Tech 1 or Tech 2. And I think the idea was supposed to be that it will give you that notification for the entire time. But on CC, how it currently works is that the moment you warp, so you activate it to get this notification, but the moment you warp, it deactivates. So actually, you only get one use out of it currently. But I'm pretty sure that's like a bug and not a feature. Like I don't think that's the expected.
You know what?
That would break the module if that's the case for what I plan on using it for. Hopefully, that doesn't stay.
I think that's a bug, but I hope it is.
Right now, as it is, like the only I can picture using nullifier for bombers for two things. One, to get out if you get bubbled after you bomb, which is probably what I'll use it for. But the other option is to activate it before you warp in order to avoid bubbles to get in position, which would be huge. But if I need to decloak first, there's no way I can decloak on grid at my bombing pings without getting probed and killed during tie-dye.
You'd have to do it off
So you have to come from off grid, but then I need to warp on grid. You can't multi-vector probe. It's a huge issue as it is now.
Is that how it is right now? You have to decloak in order to use it?
Yeah.
And if you can only use it one warp, it's useless for what I intend on doing it. Because as it is, I need to be off grid like 1,000,000 kilometers, activate it, warp to the ping, get the fleet warp, avoid the bubbles, and hopefully I have enough time. But if it only works for one warp, then that doesn't apply for me. So then it'd be a defensive only module.
Currently, this the way it works currently also makes the bonuses that you get for being a Scepter or a T3C completely pointless, because they get the duration bonus, right? But if you only get one warp out of it, then what's the point of the duration?
Yeah. And I also need to take off the burst jammers off my bombers too, because the burst jam overrides the nullification bit. So
that's another
having
little
burst jammers on bombers is nice.
Even with the 15 seconds, so if you do the Tech 2 nullification, even with the 15 seconds, it still makes it quite spicy to be able to get in from a perch to bomb and then be able to warp off.
You're not going to be able to be off grid at all to do that. Like the
and
warp alone is like 5-second warp, even from like
exactly.
600 kilometers, it's still like 5 seconds.
And the thing is, like, because a bomber has around 4.5 second align time, if you do like dual inertial in the lows or whatever, then you've only got like a few seconds to make sure you've launched the bomb and then warp off. So it's actually a really tight timeline.
And even if you pre-align, it's still rough as hell, because all your bombers on the same perch, they need to decloak first, activate it, wait out. It's just you need to decloak, wait the cooldown, activate the module, reactivate cloak, warp in. It's not as it is now. I don't think it's super like valuable.
And even if when you try and get out again, if the module like stops, in the idea of it working for the full duration, right? If the module then suddenly decycles while you're still aligning out, then you've lost notification. So it's quite a tight timeline to work within.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume they will tweak that mod like a little bit, right? So what would you guys hope they do? Basically saying, okay, 15 seconds, and then you can activate it cloaked.
I think activating cloak would be OP, honestly. Chossuh,
same. I think because I think like the thing is, if you activate a cloak, then basically what that means is you get the element of surprise automatically, right? Because no one sees you appear. You can position yourself wherever you want to be, and then you have the ability to get out again because you've got everything set up. But maybe a good trade-off would be the fact that if you can't activate it cloaked, so you have to decloak first, thereby signaling to everybody that what you're about to do is going to happen. But then you have the option of potentially getting your guys out because you've then got enough time to then potentially warp your bombers out, such that the notification lasted long enough time, right? But I'm not sure 15 seconds is enough to do that. So
it's not.
Yeah, I think you need like 18 to 20 seconds on a T2 module, maybe a little bit more, but something around there. Like I don't think as it is 12, 15 seconds is enough to really to get bomb in, bomb out. Yeah.
No,
No,
I think
it's not.
the warp alone
Right.
is probably 5 to 7 seconds. Deadline time 5 to 6.
I think 200 kilometers is about 6 seconds in a properly fit bomber.
Yeah, and usually I warp for more than 500 because of bubbles. So usually I warp it from about 3,000 or so on the ping. So it takes a second to align, which is what makes bombing the fast-moving targets so hard as it is. Like that's already a challenge, unless you can stop them somehow.
It's interesting as well because this nullification change, like it really messes up with things like scepters and also T3Cs, even without even with the duration proper duration thing. Because if you think about it, like if you want to then take a scepter through a gate and then you try and activate a nullification on the other side, that's a server tick that you spend activating. That's you have to align, activate nullification, then warp off, right, in order to get out of a bubble. So like it's going to change quite a bit with how people move around Eve as well.
Why do you guys think it's OP if you were able to activate it while cloaked?
I think it's to do personally. I think it's to do the element surprise because, like right now,
we have that already.
You have that already right now, right? But then you're trading that for the ability not to position in any way you want. So I think the issue with being able to activate it cloaked is like you could basically be anywhere you want, and then also have element surprise.
Yeah, but so chemos have that, right? For example, you can warp like a bunch of chemos in and nuke a small fleet, element of surprise, and it works really well.
Yeah.
Is it such a game changer if you had that for bombers? I mean, those bombers can get, let's say you can only get the warp in, like let's say it doesn't change that much, you can just activate it cloaked. So you can activate it, then warp into the perfect position, but half your fleet's got to be in bubbles, right? Yeah, you surprise them, but you might just still all die, right?
Yeah, so the use would be to avoid the bubbles, to warp through the bubbles to get in position. You wouldn't want to land in the bubbles because then you'll be caught.
Yeah, well, but not always do you have the choice. You should know that, right? Sometimes those grids
That's what I mean.
so
I wouldn't use it in the
bubbles.
case. So like, it's not a huge benefit. Like, I would use it to avoid bubbles sometimes, but definitely like, I would use it to avoid being dragged on different positions, which would be huge. That'd be a great change. If it stands as it is, where you can only use it while you're decloaked, the really only use that I could see for what I'm doing is to use it defensively. So you warp in, then you get bubbled, you just activate and warp off, no problem.
But then,
which is a nice change. That'd be great.
But then that supports my argument saying it's not as OP. Bombers kind of needed bombers needed
I think,
a push a little bit, so that might just get them there, right? So
I think you're right. Like if formations weren't a thing, I think it would be too strong. But given that formations are a thing now, I think it's probably quite reasonable because there's no way you can get properly you only get a portion of the fleet now anyway, unless they're anchored up, and then it's even harder to get bomb runs off when people are doing.
I think it's more of a slippery slope for coding wise. Like if they can activate a module that you can activate while cloaked, like what else can you activate while cloaked? Like that would open up like everything, right? In theory, so that might be another limitation.
Isn't there some module you can activate cloaked?
Nope. You can activate the cloak, but that's it, obviously.
Yeah, that might just be a coding barrier. Then,
That's what I'm thinking.
I don't like this coding barrier argument.
But they're also saying that you can activate it. You can activate it while you're doing a gate cloak too. So like that'd be critical, right? The other issue with the nullifier is that if it's on the cooldown, then it pretty much gate camps are OP as fuck because you can activate one side of it for your nullifier, you can't activate on the other side, right? So it makes moving around in like your probing tank or whatever a lot more difficult too.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing too, right? If both sides are bubbled and you need to take that gate, you can only choose one side to
people are going to be scouting themselves in shuttles, man.
Shuttles.
Yeah, I mean, I thought maybe you could do it such that you could activate it before taking gate and it lasting through the gate, like through the session change. But then that's a bit code spaghetti style as well. So
yeah, and now that you mentioned shuttles, Brisk said what they proposed, like CSM wise, was to remove nullification from scepters with guns. Right? If you fit a gun, you don't nullify, which is pretty much what I pushed for too. Like, I didn't understand this. Like, whenever they introduced the nullification, but then put nullification on shuttles, because like that's their role. Travel.
Yeah.
Travel scepters shouldn't be really the thing. It should be shuttled, right? People should be traveling in shuttles. And
yeah, I quite like the idea of having on shuttles. I think that kind of makes sense.
yeah, and they're
Also
killable.
And they're low volume cargo wise as well, so you can't transport huge amounts in them. So it's kind of it's relatively balanced.
But then apparently CCP took it and said like, okay, notification, and then they just like made this big thing out of it.
Got this like little smile coming on, like
like, ooh, we can do way more.
What can we do here?
And it might just, I mean, I'm not sure. Like, I think those changes might just be a net positive, but I think it's a little complicated for what it's trying to do at the same time, right?
Yeah.
I'd be okay if they made nullification, or like nullification specifically, not have any guns. Like, that'd be a cool change. Like, why do you need to nullify if you're in combat? Like, all right, that's cool. I'm down with that.
Get rid of the cancer fuzzy claw style doctrines as well that everyone hates.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how I would have approached this problem. I mean, like, they probably thought about all these issues, right? They probably took that shuttle proposal and then went from there. And then there must have been a reason why they went like to the more complex solution here.
To be fair, I was a little bit surprised when I saw Ballmer's add-on on nullification change, because that wasn't like something that I've been aware was like really requested. Like, yes, it's a nice change, and it could be great, but it's not something I like expected or had ever really like wanted to have on my bombers, like, you know.
But yeah, I mean, some changes, like sometimes there's changes that like those are things you never knew you wanted, but you do, right? Sometimes there's some good stuff coming. But... like, oh yeah, formations, you know. I mean, I think there's
formations look pretty, but fucking hell,
I'm not a fan of formations. I know Panda is. Panda, you like them.
It's just,
but,
yeah, I don't like them. Obviously, I mean, I'm biased.
I think it's because me and Sieku do a lot of bombing and I do a lot of keymoving. So like the formations just annoy me because you're just making it super easy.
They look pretty, but really, I mean, apart from avoiding bombing, what's really the point of them?
Yeah, I don't. I think for keymoving, it's probably not that bad.
As like a defense against bombing is like the only reason I can think of why fleet formations are really used at the moment. Like, is there a reason, if you're not worried about bombing or chemos, is there a reason to warp you guys in a giant wall? Like, no, you want to be all grouped up as possible, right? For logi ranges, for anchoring, etc.
Yeah, and
so if you're not worried about bombing, then yeah, and that's why we gotta wait. But then you're at speed, so like it's a direct bomber counter. But apart from bombing, what's the?
But guys, I don't know why I should even tell you guys, but you have the formation. You can warp in front of a moving target now. So the moving problem is now gone, really. Right?
For one squad, but I'm more interested in getting a multi-vector squad, and the formation doesn't help me at all with that.
I shouldn't be talking about this. I shouldn't give you more tools to bomb. You've got plenty of tools, right?
I mean, I'll absolutely check it out to see what I'm missing after we're done here, but as far as I can tell, for multi-vectoring squads from 3,000 kilometers away, from 6 compass points, the fleet formations don't really help me with that. But I'm probably missing something, and I'm going to experiment the hell when we're done here.
I think you are missing something. Alright, so why is it multi-vector? Why do you go north, south, east, west, up and down?
Well, you do it.
Why is it those 6 positions?
Yeah, because you need the angles, but like, and the problem with using like a sphere to get the different angles and separation is you're too far away.
Or you're too close, one of the two, right?
But yeah, the angles, like I want, like if I could get like a 45
but with a relative formation,
it'd be usable.
You can get people in the right spot. And you know what, actually? I tried that the first time and I didn't prepare people correctly. That was just the other day, actually. Maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago on Horde, actually. I tried it. And I didn't get them on just the right spot because I didn't explain it well enough. So people were kind of out of position. So there's a little bit more skill, like pilot skill, getting involved here. But most people were in the right spot, which tells me, like, okay, if I explain everything calmly and like several times, people will get it right. And then if you get them in a 40 km sphere on a save, let's say, you can relative warp that sphere around, and then you can relative warp that sphere onto targets, and you can also relative warp that sphere in front of the moving target, which is then pretty strong, right?
It'll be something I'm going to play with for sure, but the way you describe it, I'm not entirely sure it'd be. I don't know.
Well, I did test
it's
runs,
quite-
and it does work, but
it's quite tricky to set up as well.
Yeah, that's my concern, is getting a setup against a moving target like that at like 2.5k a second might be a bit tough. But like I said, I'm gonna play with it after this. If y'all lose Immunifleet tomorrow, you'll know why.
it's not that hard. I'm sure you can find a way. And yeah,
Oh,
I might just regret
as soon as
telling
we're
you
done
guys.
here. Yeah,
like,
as
talking
soon as
into
we're
it.
done here, I'm gonna go play with it.
But if you
But
wipe
another
out a
thing-
Munimfleet tomorrow, I'm gonna claim it's mine.
Yeah, it's
Right?
totally you. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like I
Another
need
thing
an
back-
honorary
back to
mention at
the-
least.
Yeah, back to the bombing, like the bombing nerfs. I think we should probably talk a little bit more about like
Oh
what
yeah.
has actually happened to make bombing in its like current place. Right?
So yeah,
why it's not so good.
So in the last year, the bomb damage got nerfed, but a lot of people, like, or let's say, people that never bombed themselves, like non-bomber FCs, they're not aware the EHP also got nerfed, and how that works together, right? So it's both 20%, but it resulted in like an overall 30% less damage you can bring onto a target, right?
Yeah, because they reduced the number by reducing the HP of the bombs to compensate for like the damage and resist changes. They reduced the total number of bombs, which resulted in a net damage loss.
Yeah, so it used to be 8 bombs with Covox level 4, 7 bombs with Covox level 5. No idea why, by the way. That's also something that's just super weird. And now it's 6 bombs with Covox level 5, and then 7 bombs with Covox level 4. There's also another weird thing.
I think it's always 6 bombs
why-
actually.
No, it used to be 7. Before
it's
the
the-
resist change, it's down to 6 with Code 5. I assume
Yeah.
Code 5 in every
No, no.
fleet I do. But then you throw in like void bombs and shit, and the numbers get all sorts of wonky.
No, what I meant with like it's always 6. It's right now, no matter the skill. I ran the numbers when it got changed, and I think everything resulted in 6.
Used to be 7 before the change.
Yeah, it used to be 7, mate.
Yeah, before the change. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but now after the change is now
But-
6. I'm not sure what Kovoft 4 and like half your fleet
Covox
be
4
5
used to
or
be
4,
8 and 7.
I
so
just
you-
bring 6. I
you-
cap
you-
mine as 6, just
so you-
assuming.
Yeah, you'd always get more bomb damage with level 4 than you would with level 5.
Yeah, because
which
the
is also
number.
Nobody has
yeah.
Nobody has it on. Oh no,
So,
actually,
like,
covered
I'm-
up level 5.
I'm gonna
yeah.
tell all of my boys to extract Covox level 5 because it's useless.
Well, bomb deployment, bomb launcher tech 2 is the difference.
Yeah.
So fuck that. I'm not gonna have all my dudes use T1 launchers in order to get one more bomb run because the cooldown time is different.
Also, like,
which-
if you have level 5, you can like have a mixed squad still and still get 7 bombs working. But there's only I think.
oh,
only
you meant
have-
covert ops anyway. Sorry, I was thinking bomb deployment's the skill
Yeah.
for that.
So I think you can only
Although
have,
that's
like,
a great segue. Fuck
Oh,
the bomb deployment
okay.
skill level. Sorry, maybe I'm not supposed
Yeah, I
to.
just want
swear.
to mention like you can only have like at most 2 Covox level 5 people in a squad of 7, and that'll still get 7 off. But if you have more than that, you'll
That's
only get
fair,
6 off.
yeah. And like defenders make it like kind of pointless as well to only do 6 per, but we just bring more squads at this point. But bomb deployment skill is still broken, and that still irritates me.
What's wrong with the bomb deployment skill, Sieku?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Good segue. Okay. Scott, I was gonna have to explain it.
I wonder
so,
if CCP knows.
Yeah, well, I fucking hopefully at this point. Sorry, I try not to swear. But as far as the bomb deployment skill goes, for anyone that's not aware, bomb deployment skill is a skill in the game that reduces. It's supposed to reduce this cooldown of your bomb launcher, right? It's supposed to be 10% per level, which means with bomb deployment 5, it should be 50% reduction in your bomb cooldown, right? Sounds overpowered, probably is, but the fact is it doesn't apply to the game. It only applies the 10% for the first level, and after that it doesn't matter unless you get to level 5 for Tech 2 bomb launcher. My issue is it's a skill in the game that isn't applying, and I would love it to be fixed.
Yeah, they might even. I mean, maybe it should be only 5 or 7.5% or whatever, right?
Yeah, it should probably
But it
be
would
changed,
yeah.
but it should be applied. Like, I would love for the bomb cooldown to be slightly less than defender launchers, because right now, as it is, defender launchers, you see a bomb, you fire. I know there's some other changes where you like multiple different squads or wings and bombers, you fire launchers according to squads or whatever, but right now it's like you see bomb, you fire according to your number, whatever it is. Like it would be so much more interesting if there's like a 15-second gap where a really good bomber FC that's waiting for the cooldown that warps the bombers as the cooldown is just coming up to get the run immediately could avoid one's winged defenders. It would be really interesting change because it's really difficult to implement. The timeline is very narrow, but it could in theory get past defenders and make it for a higher skill cap, which I think would be a really interesting mechanic.
I always thought that like it'd be really cool if rather than it then being dumbfire, you actually had to physically lock the bomb up in order to be able to shoot a defender launch at it.
That'd be
Rather than
another really
just-
interesting change based on like UI, because bombs are objects in space. That'd be another great change.
Yeah.
You know what's one thing I always thought about too? Like if you have, like, let's say 20 bombers on your battleship fleet and they just orbit you at 500, right? And there's a bomb run coming in. If you're quick with those bombers, you might just kill all the other bombers, right?
Yeah.
It's like I always wanted
We've
to do
done
that.
it, yeah.
Actually, when I knew
ask Bode how that happens.
did
I
you
bombed
do
Bode
that
a couple
too?
times. Yeah.
I know when you were formed one time, I was thinking about doing that, just baiting you, like just warping in, like, hey, come bomb me. But I didn't have a spy on comm, so I was like, that dude usually lands and then aligns first and then counts down and then bombs, and then I don't think I can hit the timing, so I'm just gonna get everyone killed, so I didn't do it. But if I had a spy on comms on that day, I would have done it.
Yeah, definitely. Like recently, for one of the Keepstar fights, Boat put like 40 bombers on one angle and just did like a staggered wave, like 6 at a time. And after he did that, as soon as the first bomb decoded, I bombed him and got most of his bombers doing that. And then there's a pretty, I don't know, for me, there's a pretty like notable Reddit post a while back. This is back in like 2017 or 18 or something, where I'd bombed Boat's bombers during like the early days of the test moving to catch thing. And then at one point, Boat said something like, talk to me when I bomb a Rio fleet. And like 2 days later, I deleted Jay's Tempest fleet. So that was pretty fun. But definitely, like, you can bomb other bombers. And it's personally one of my most like favorite things to do because it's kind of just like a flex in a way, I guess.
I know. You tried that with my bombers a couple times too.
Oh, yeah. It's tough. It's tough.
I never got caught though. I want to say that.
Not yet, boyo. And I'll get caught too, I'm sure. But
if that one dummy warps in and decloaks his squad, right? Everyone already knows what's coming. Right?
Or I get DCs, like a lot of times, unfortunately, I'll be sitting at pings and one of my guys will DC, and like that happens probably once or twice a week, and like at that point you need to remake pings and reposition people, because as soon as someone sees where you are, it's pretty dangerous to be using that. But
yeah. A lot of times you get away with it, but that one time.
Yeah, but complacency kills. Like I can get away with it 10 times, and that one time don't reping, I'm gonna lose like an entire squad or whatever.
Yeah, I catch myself being lazy with that stuff a lot of times, but the second I think of it, that's where I'm like, okay, now I'm thinking of it. The hostile guy on that grid who might just try to do this, he's thinking of it too, so now I have to move. So
yeah, that's how I approach it too. It's like you have to think that, especially bombing when there's not many people on grid too, it's like you're the only target, so everyone you're attacking is now trying to kill you. So
yeah. So if the so they've got the nerf with the damage, they got the nerf with the EHP, and then bombers got like way less people use bombers. Like overall, before those nerfs, you had like a bomber fleet almost in every fight, right? You could say like at a certain size, let's say there's 500 people in local, there's a bomber fleet in there. That's what before those nerfs. So like, how did you try to adjust? Like we talked about it like shortly before, like before we went live. Like what techniques did you try to do to get around this problem a little bit? Or like how did you adjust your bombing in general?
Yeah, so we're talking about all the recent changes the past year, right?
The past year, past 2 years. I'm not sure when the first EHP damage nerf came in.
Yeah, so when that happened, we did the calculations and we realized it's like a net damage loss, but we just reduced our numbers from 7 to 6. So like, and that's kind of frustrating too, because that's a hard cap on the number of bombers you can have, right? So as it is now, you can bring 36 bombers for 6 different points with 6 per squad, which is a lot for what I do, but not a lot for like bigger fleets or bigger alliances or whatever. So That's definitely a change to a point where you're having to have multiple different wings of bombers because you're at over the reasonable damage cap.
Yeah, so what I actually like Chossuh.
You want to mention bush bombing?
Exactly. So you tried.
Oh, is that what we're trying to get to? Okay.
So we talked about bush bombing, and we had a little bit of an argument. I had to stop us, right? So for those who don't know how this goes, usually like the guys that come on the show, like they show up like a couple minutes before, and then it's like, hey, how's it going? We talk about all kinds of stuff, and then a lot of times, like mostly, actually all the time, instantly it starts like a discussion about something, right? And I always have to stop everyone, like, no, keep it, right? And this is one of those moments, right? We talked about bush bomb runs. So, and then you were so focused on the distance. So, like, maybe you want to talk about first, like, how do you set up a bush bomb run? Like,
yeah. So the way I look at it is, bush bombing for me is like something that's more static. Like it's good against a static target not moving super fast, and that's because the distance is involved. Like you fire a bomb, it's going to travel. It travels 30 kilometers in a direction over 12 seconds. So for me, like bush bombing would be really difficult for a moving fleet because I warp a busher at 100 or whatever, work the bombers to the busher in order to boost the bombs, etc. You know, it's all takes time, right? And so by the time you warp and land and then fire the bombs and boost, chances are your fleet's outside range if they're moving at that like 2k a second for like hack speed or whatever. Much different if it's like a static target on a gate or battleships that aren't moving or whatever. But as it is now, bush bombing like hacks would be incredibly difficult for me at least.
So we actually tried it like specifically for hacks, and we figured out a way that it could work. And it's a lot of aiming and a bit of like you need a lot of practice, but we did it quite a few times on CC at least with like people pretending to be a hack, hack fleet and stuff. And it does actually have the potential to work really, really well. But like with the damage nerfs, obviously it's not super good anymore. But
that's exactly how Stukas were born, right?
Yeah.
That's basically a simpler version of bush bomb runs because you have the bombers always on you, right? You can just bush around, you know the distance, and then you just get a practice and get good with like getting in the right position. That's kind of what the idea was, right?
So let's back up a second. In my mind, like bushing bombing would be like you bush and take only the bombs with you, which is like kind of difficult to push off. But like if you're gonna boost the bombers themselves, then you open up all sorts of fucking opportunities.
Like I just compared the process because you said like, yeah, we were testing it and we figured out a way. That's exactly how we went about it too.
Yeah, when I mentioned it, I actually meant bushing the bombs. So we were like, figured out a way to get the bombs to boost quite well, and provided that you have the lead anchor of the squad that's doing the bombing.
Yeah, but that's kind of hard in tie-dye too, though. Like at least in tie-dye big fleets, it's kind of tough always to find the anchor itself, especially like when there's 1,000 people on grid. Because usually it's like a monitor, which aren't always the easiest things to probe.
You've almost got more time in tie-dye to set that up. Right, because once you find the anchor, then it's just about.
There's all these bubbles.
So whenever we tried it quite a lot against Imperium, like during
in tie-dye
deployment. Not during tie-dye, but
that's the thing.
What we found is that it's actually really hard to do, not because of like, not necessarily because it's like hard to achieve, but also just getting there in time and having everything set up in time. Because often the fights in the early days were happening over like not over set objectives, but over just random fights that would develop, and then it's really hard. But we've actually not tried it on the set objective yet.
So like I'm gonna tell you another thing I shouldn't tell you. Don't forget about it in tie-dye. Forget about it. Because technically, so when you do a bush bomb run, right? I'm sure you guys do it the same way.
I don't know. How do you do it?
So you warp the squad, or you have the squads. You have two bookmarks, right? The first bookmark is the bookmark where you have your command destroyer sit on, cloaked, right? And that's 100 km to the side of the objective. Let's say it's a gate where you think, okay, fleets will land here, right? For example, the E-V gate in 3-D. Very busy, like you can't go wrong with that one, right? Someone's gonna land there. So if you're on the side, the chances are way higher that someone's gonna land like kind of in the ballpark of your bomb range, right? Because if they warp at 50 onto the gate and land in the bubble, well, they're still kind of at 100. Doesn't have to be perfect, right? You've got that bomb range, 30k. Or if they land on a ping, it's usually on top or bottom and then they warp down, they're still gonna be kind of at 100. So that's why I say like, first spot should be on the side. So you're sitting there cloaked with your command destroyer, and then you have another spot that's 25 km, like whatever, like it doesn't really matter what direction, where the bombers sit, right? And the bombers only have the instruction to, like when it's called, to approach the other bookmark where the command destroyer sits, and then you count down, and then you bomb. And then when the bombs are at 13 km, you should decloak and MJD. Now in tie-dye though, when the bombs are at 13 km and you hit decloak and MJD, nothing happens. And you don't know for how long. So you can't really time it. So I tried it a few times, do it at 18, do it at 20. Like, it's not reliable at all, right? Some people decloak early, some like don't. In tie-dye, it's just such a mess. So in tie-dye, pulling the timing off is very, very hard. I'm not saying it's impossible. And then maybe you just fucking push those numbers up and say, okay, we just bomb with 20 dudes. Like, surely you're going to boosh some bombs over, right? That's an option, really, it is, right? But
yeah, sure.
When
that's all static targeting, though. Like, what's the point if you're gonna bomb at the edge of a bubble? Like, why would I not just put bombers at a ping at the edge of that bubble? Like, what's the point of boosting at that point?
Well, you don't know what edge of the bubble. So if there's a bubble on the gate, you don't know if they warp in from the top or from the side or from left, right, or maybe the bubble is 30 km off.
Yeah.
Right?
Also, like,
the angles for going left of the bubble and right of the bubble are the same if you're coming from the top. It's based on geometry. That's an interesting point.
The benefit of doing a boosh bomb is that if you have a fleet that's fighting over an objective, right? Imagine two hack fleets duking it out. You're only really paying attention to bombs like if they appear within your kind of like zone of influence, right? Which is like what's happening on grid, right? So a lot of people just won't notice that the fact that 200 kilometers away or whatever, there's a bunch of bombs coming in.
Yep.
So, but when we were trying it out, we were actually trying to anchor up the bombers with the command destroyers. We'd have 2 command destroyers, and then a squad of 7 bombs sitting behind it.
Oh, you keep it range
at a range, yeah. And then you launch the bombs, and then you immediately, like I think it was like 7.5 kilometers or something. You launch the bombs, you immediately boosh, and then as long as you get the timing right, you can then get the second boosher to basically boosh the bombs of the final distance.
That's very Stuka-ish.
Yeah. And we got it working on, like, it was working great on CC, but we just never managed to do it in practice because we didn't have like an appropriate grid really to try it on yet. So,
yeah,
but maybe you'll see us appear at some point.
That is exactly how Stuka stuff started, right? We did that on CC. I did the test runs, and I'm like, I got a little bit like confident in my aiming abilities, and then we tried to take on the first medium fleets, and we got fucking shit on, right? It's like, I'm telling you, it's not that easy. Like when it's like the heat of the moment, like, and then people were questioning, like, what the fuck are you even doing, right? But if you wipe the first medium fleet out, I was like, oh yeah, it's totally OP. I already knew it, right?
Arguably, it's worse though because you set the expectations. if your first run with the doctrine goes really well, you're like, well,
that is also true.
It's like it can be really difficult to set up, and if it happens to work, it's like, all right, we're gonna do that every time, but it doesn't work every time as far as booshing and bombing goes. There's so many variables too. It's like the skill, the timing involved is so difficult based on what skill you have too.
Yeah. And
so it's like your boosh can take anywhere from 8 to 6 seconds, and that wildly varies how you're gonna boosh bombs with 2 seconds.
So
well, yeah, it doesn't. We actually did, like, as long as you have like more than 3, there's actually quite a significant like chunk of time. It's like a couple seconds where you can.
Well, in tie-dye, it also doesn't matter as much too. You just bomb based on distance. Same with, and I mean, I don't know if you're doing it like, do you have your all 3 booshers or 2 booshers, whatever, at the same spot, or are you trying to like boosh one then boosh the other?
So when we were doing on 60, we would have the actual boosher like anchor up in each other, and you'd have the bombers anchor up on the boosh on the lead boosher basically. So you
can scale that. You can bomb for 1,000 kilometers away at that point if you just scale it. You just have multiple booshers. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I guess with 2 boosters, it also gives you the ability to boosh. It kind of does, but oh my god, how fucking hard would that be? So I was about to say, like,
to take your boosher past it and drop off the bombs. That's hard as fuck. I've tried it.
I was about to say, like, so you could go at an angle. Let's say the target is at 170. What do? You're like, you have 2 boosters at 200 km. So then angling,
you can pull up that geometry. Good work.
And you have to do it while the bombs are on the way. I can do it with a Stuka fleet. All bombers are anchored on me, and I can just like, I have a good feeling for it. Like after thousands of those fleets, you kind of get the feeling for it, and you can just do it quickly. But to do that while the bombs are already on the way, I think that's definitely unrealistic. Someone might just be able to pull it off, but like.
That's like me, where like I wanted to
So-
boosh a fleet, like use like 2 booshers to boosh like up 100, down 100, and only land like 30 kilometers ahead of you or something. But like that's the kind of crazy geometry that would be like insane to pull off, but would be fantastic.
Yeah. So what's the advantage of taking 2 bushes then?
In me, you get greater range, so you don't get shot. If most fleets can shoot out to 100 kilometers right now, so like the boosh spool is dangerous as heck if you're fighting
Also,
like eagles or something.
it's also just to do with geometry. Like the further you are away, the easier it is to like, because the problem is if you're closer, then the rate of change of the anchor is much greater than the rate of change if you're further away. So it's easier to
Well,
set up the
yeah.
alignment. You know what I'm saying? Like, because also when you boosh as well, you got to factor in that when you boosh, you start immediately heading in one direction. So then you've got to like readjust the moment you boosh as well. So the lead anchor,
Yeah.
it's actually a little bit challenging to.
Yeah, you need to
Like-
anchor ahead of them, and if they turn or something from those distances, it's bad
Yeah.
news.
So like when we were trying it, you like once you hit the first boosh, the lead anchor then has to like constantly just adapt his direction such that you get the right position.
Interesting.
I was thinking you could take the boosters past them too by adding another one. So like you do the boosh, you put the bombs, you wait for the bombs to fire, and you spool the second boost to take both boosters like out of danger. But that's
Yeah, we tried
pretty
that.
insane.
That works. But yeah, you got to be careful the boost just doesn't die to the bombs as well. So
Yeah.
Well, the bushes
you gotta,
usually do die.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you assume they're gonna
spec tank
die.
them. You can spec tank them so they can tank it, but it's still a bit yikes.
Yeah. So
That's what I was doing with like boosters and dictors back in like I was bombing Horde for a while using boosh bombing with dictors. So you'd boost the bomber and the dictor, so you'd take the bombs and the dictor bubble with you onto the fleet, and that was kind of fun. But
yeah, and the webs and all that stuff, you know. You like
it's
take
really
it.
tough to pull off. Like you
I
can
know.
theoretically do lots of stuff with booshing, but like in an active dynamic fleet situation with
Yeah,
multiple
so-
fleets moving like 3k a second, it's a lot harder to pull off.
I have thought about doing like instead of a Stuka fleet with bombs, you just bush around the wobbles, right? You have like 10 bushers, 10 wobblers, and you just keep bushing in, wobbling, bushing out. And then if you take some hostiles with you, like so be it. But like you have to watch out to not bush too many because your dudes will get left behind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if
But-
you boosh more than 25, you leave your dudes behind.
Yeah, so you have to be very, very much on point. But I think it's probably like you'll lose too many too quickly, right? Every now and then you lose like, and then if you have only 20 dudes, like you'll run out of dudes quick.
I think
But,
bushing
yeah.
is one of the most interesting mechanics they've introduced to this game in a long time. Like,
think so
there's
too.
so many options with it, but it's so tough to pull off, which I love. I love that high skill cap, but as far as like bombing goes, one squad is really interesting. I don't think you're going to be able to do like
So
3 or 4 squads with bushing.
that's the discussion we were like where I stopped it, right? Because I disagree that so the thing is with bush bomb runs, you can surprise people because you can be precise and you can surprise them. Like let's say there's a Jackdaw fleet. They might not even react in time and you land those bombs, but you can only land so many bombs per bush run.
Yeah.
Now the argument is, and you were talking about the ranges, you cannot land more because they would overlap and kill each other. But I would say you can land more, but you just have to stagger them time-wise, right? So you say 3, 2, 1,
exactly,
squad 1
exactly.
go, and then dude 1 and his command destroyer goes, and then you say, okay, 3, 2, 1, and the next squad goes, and then they should overlap just time-wise, and it should be fine, actually.
Yeah, you could absolutely do that. It's just the distances with a moving fleet is my challenge. Like,
Yeah,
it's
very,
absolutely possible if it's a static target not moving much, but when you're trying to do like hack fleets, then it becomes a way more difficult issue, I think.
so like it is challenging. It does take a lot of practice on CC to get a feel of like the tactical overview and how you need to align your ship with the vectors that are appearing on
Yeah.
your screen. That is very challenging. Like we did quite a few tests on CC with my boys, and over like 50% of people did quite well at it, but then 50% of people just really struggled with getting the alignment correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the bush bombers too. Like you can land 1 squad. Maybe you have an alt and you do it with 2. But with 3, it gets too much quickly. So you need other people doing this more complex thing, understanding exactly.
You'd have to have squads that each know each other and boosters that understand what their squads are doing, which, I'm taking notes obviously, and I'm interested in working that out to make it work now that we talk about it, but yeah, it's definitely a challenge. Something that I'm interested in, but it's not something we do now. Like, if we need multiple runs, we just do what's called shotgun bombing, which is where the left squad will align left of the target, right squad align right, so that way the bombs are fired at an angle such as they detonate so that way there's overlap on the enemy targets, but no overlap on the bombs. But with bushing, you can introduce it in much different angles doing that.
You want to hear something I tested, which the math just doesn't work out at the end of the day, but it looks fucking awesome. And it's just like, the most sexy bomb run you could land is, so we had 2 bushes cloaked on the spot, and instead of doing the normal thing we just described, right, you would bomb them from like 25, so like the bombs are like the maximum time in the bush range and all that stuff. You would just orbit that spot with those bombers at like 10 or something, right? And then when you call for it, you just decloak, hit regroup, everyone just approaches the middle, and then you say 3, 2, 1, everyone bomb, you bush right away, and then the bombs travel away from each other. So you would have a bomb run, instead of going from the outside, hitting the center point, you would have then a bomb run, you would bush into hostiles that goes out with the bombs coming from the inside to the outside. And I tested that, and it looked fucking awesome, and we hit some stuff, but goddamn, that was so hard to set up. And the math just doesn't work out. So
it could.
Yeah, I mean,
BRB playing with it. Oh, no, you can't. The math, you're right though. The math range on number, yeah, I don't think it works.
You know, I didn't do the.
What if you have the bombers like either side of the bushes? If you have bombers already set up in the right place, right? Like
if you orbit 10. All right, be right back. All right, I need to end the show. No, I'm just kidding, but. That could be really interesting.
Like you just set up your bombers in the right position on the bushes, right, which are cloaked.
Yeah, and then you boost you boost either the bombs or the bombers, but not. Oh, holy shit!
And you get automatic overlap, dude.
There you go. Right. Why do I even do this? Can someone explain?
Yeah, you might have just fucked up your battleship fleets, because I'm gonna boost in the middle of your battleship fleets doing that tactic.
You know what? If you pull that off. In a proper way, actually wiping out some serious shit, I'm not even going to be mad. That would be the most exciting thing coming out of this war, let's be honest. All right?
That's actually a legit tactic for battleship fleets, though. Oh, goodness.
But obviously, battleships need to get hit by more than one squad, though.
Yeah, also with the SRS.
I can do multiple squads, multiple angles, and just do 3 different squads of doing it that way. That could be legit.
Yeah, but with the SRS now, it's also much harder to bomb battleships as well.
Yeah, this could be really good.
Well, maybe I shouldn't have.
Yeah, it's dangerous. I love mechanics and like theory crafting and stuff. So bombing theory crafting is really interesting to me.
Yeah, I think people underestimate how much theory and stuff goes into that. Like, I think people just see like the video of the like dude 123 who just takes the warp, releases the bomb, and gets the kill mates, and they're like, easy, right? Easy.
Yeah, that's a problem. You have like the first time bomber who gets like 200 kill mails. You're like, this is great. This is the best thing I've ever done. Yeah. It's like, congrats! I've been doing this for 3 years. I haven't had that happen yet.
While you're sitting there in your free time for 8 hours a day, just thinking about the travel time of bombs and the void bombs which are different, and then the void bombs also have different damage, right? Which like
they're omni, which means they do 27 omni with a bomb resist profile to their specific damage. Means that a void bomb will do 22 damage to every other bomb around it.
And a normal bomb only does 13, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah, which is like...
When you're calculating bomb damage, keep in mind, for everyone else listening, that when you're calculating the bomb damage numbers, keep in mind that your bomb detonating will kill itself, right? So that way the numbers are 6, because it's like 5.7 is like the bomb, the amount of it'll do to kill it.
Yep. The 6th bomb will blow up. So.
Exactly. So as long as your bomb is the 6th bomb, you're fine.
With Copper's level 5. If it's 4, it's a different game. But that really annoys me, like that you don't get the scaling out of like having cov-op skill. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Like, I'd be okay if they fix the bomb deployment skill.
I'd be fine with like just give us a reason to use the Tech 2 bomb launcher. Because
the cooldown. I mean, like the cooldown's great, but that's the only benefit. Well, I mean, you hold more bombs, which is great, but everyone just brings a bomb truck anyway, so who cares?
But also, I think the problem is, like, let's say you have 4 bombs loaded in the Tech 2 launcher and 2 in cargo.
Yeah, fuck me. You can't switch tabs.
Exactly. If you have void bombs in cargo and you're like, oh no, I want to use void bombs, then it wants to put the 4 bombs into cargo and the 2 voids in the launcher. The 2 voids
around
land in the
that.
launcher, but those four bombs just disappear into nothing, right? Because they can't get put
Exactly.
into cargo.
So we usually put 3 in our cargo because you can fit like 3 bombs plus
Yeah.
like 200 bucks or something. So we do 3 bombs, and if we need to hot swap, we just blank fire that 1 bomb. So that way we have 3 in the launcher, 3 in the cargo. You can swap no problem. But yeah, it's shit that you can't swap based on that.
That is
I
weird.
wonder why. Yeah, I wonder why they're so big. Like bombs, it doesn't make. Why can't they just like
Yeah,
reduce the
no
size
kidding,
a little
right?
bit so you can fit more?
Well,
I agree.
Then,
Make them
then,
like
then you
1
can have
meter
all
cubes.
variety in the cargo.
when they first got introduced, they were pretty strong, I'm guessing, right? And they were for a while. They dominated the Battlefield 2 to a degree, right? I had a long, heated discussion with Shines about this, how oppressive bombers are actually. And like, he was more on the side of like, they're very oppressive and they dominate the meta.
Yeah,
And
no
I
one
was
else
like,
uses them right now. So please come at
50-50.
me.
Not anymore, not anymore. Like he wouldn't. I don't think he would argue that right now, but he used to, like before the first like changes, because bombers.
If I could have bombs pull out a fleet out of space with Dictor bubbles, oh my goodness!
But
I
so,
wish I played back.
but yeah, they kind of dominated what doctrines were on grid and which weren't, right? So it's correct. Like it's he's right. But how oppressive, I don't know. Right?
Yeah, but like that was back then, right? So a lot of
Yeah,
people are talking
it
about
changed now.
changes as they
But
were
that's why
like,
they.
years ago.
But
Look where
that's
we're
why
at
they're so
now.
big, right?
Definitely, yeah. Just like right now, the current meta, bombs aren't used a ton. Like I do bomb
No.
fleets pretty much every day, and I don't see a lot of other bomber groups on either side of the conflict at the moment. There just isn't a lot of bomber FCs out there at the moment.
Someone's saying, why is there not a bomb bay in the bombers? I don't know. What would be the difference though?
Well, bombs are effectively just really slow big missiles for this game, as far as this game is concerned, right? Like they even look like just big missiles because they move forward.
Yeah, or real life torpedoes, right? That's the difference between a torpedo and a missile, I think, right?
Yeah, they just move a short distance with a really large payload. Like they only move 30 kilometers, whereas most other missiles in the game travel thousands or hundreds of kilometers or whatever, right? So I would love a bomb bay though. That'd be fantastic. Sign me up. I wish I could do the. So another one of the change of bombings is where you need a velocity, and that was back with like when they introduced rorquals and excavators, or they introduced the rorqual changes rather for excavators. But back in the day, you could just fire a bomb and not move, which was fantastic for bombing excavators because you just sign up between the Rourke and the excavators and just don't move and you kill excavators, whatever. But it removed a really interesting mechanic where you just gimmick tank your bombers, don't move, and you just eat the damage because that way you don't have to worry about the aligning. You just sign a win bomb and you're good, or whatever. Warp in bomb, you're good. Really interesting change that isn't the case anymore. But
could you imagine that with like tick bombing?
I fucking love
That would
it.
be
I wish,
crazy,
dude.
wouldn't it? That would be crazy.
Take bombs is another thing.
You just sign a win, and then suddenly, boom, you delete the
Sorts of
fleet.
like clever mechanics for that though, like is not really the case. It's really hard to pull off now, but like you can hit people mid warp if you have their warp ticks. So like that's another interesting mechanic that's really difficult to pull off, but is something you can do. And same thing with D-scan on gate, where you launch a bomb where they land on the gate as the bomb detonates. Difficult to pull off, but if I didn't have to move the bombers, it'd be a lot easier. But I see why they don't have it that way.
I thought take bombs were another thing that instantly showed up again. I mean, they were a thing before, super rare though, like very, very rare. But the second the bomb nerf came in, people started looking at them a little bit more. And then I remember both pulling one off and you pulling one off, and I landed one, but for some reason people stopped doing them again. I don't know why, but it's rare again.
You mean tick bomb where they detonate the bomb on the gates as they're landing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess now that I said that, there's less travel of the big fleets right now, right? Everyone's very static, so it's like that's probably why.
You can hit them, especially right now. Most of the Imperium forces aren't taking gates, and Tosa's timers are kind of like the outlier where you have to take gates because it's in a constellation. But for the most part, we're not taking gates at the moment. Yeah, probably because of bombers, but I've noticed a lot of fleets are just Titan bridging, and I know most of the fights are in 3 tech D and Delve at the moment, so it's like Titan bridging from 1DQ to 3 tech D rather than take the jump gate, because it's dangerous because you're stuck in a warp tunnel with tie-dye and stuff. It's just rough, but that's a server issue.
We also tried to set up a couple of tick bombs on the Ansiplex in 3-TAC-D, but it's actually quite difficult to pull off a tick bomb.
It's really hard. And it's dangerous bombing on Ansiplexes because if your
'cause the-
bomb detonates before you warp, you're hit pointed by the structure.
Also, the radiuses are a bit fucky as well. Like the size of the Ansiplex is much bigger.
And you never know if the fleet's warping to the Antiplex or the Keepstar or whatever, so it's always
or in a formation.
definitely difficult. Yeah.
Or, also formation.
You know what's funny though?
If you're trying to set up a tick bomb on a Antiplex, dick bomb, you basically have to be in a 20-kilometer like decloak radius that someone's coming in from. So it's really dicey when you've got like constant reinforcements coming through Antiplex.
Yeah, because they're decloaking like 4K off you or something. You're like, please don't burn away.
You know what's funny? Like the other day, you guys went into 3-D, did some stuff. I don't even know what it was. And Shines was FC in the fleet. And I was just like, chilling, supporting, whatever, right? And he warped the fleet in a normal formation to the Ansiplex. And we knew you were formed with a shit ton of bombers still. And like, I think you bombed earlier on the gate. No, I think it was Sieku. And you guys bombed, I'm not sure to be honest. But someone bombed the gate earlier with like a massive bomb run, right? And he just warped like out of habit to the Ansiplex, and he's like, "Shit, I just warped on 0." And then I instantly switched to my Hollywood fucking performance and said like, "Guys, when you land on the Keepstar, just spam dock, right? Just in case you guys have someone on comms, right?"
Wait, were you in Eagles?
I think so. Yeah, I think
that might have been me. Because we were actually setting up to go for the Goon, the Imperium Munins. We weren't going. We weren't set up for going for you because I think we were.
Eagles are tough to bomb anyway.
Yeah. I mean, all packs are pretty tough to bomb, but like we've had more luck doing 1DQ to 3D, which is why there's been a lot of Titan bridges lately because that jump gate's really rough. But speaking of which, I need to create new like alts to probe with because I think y'all see sequences and you're like, oh my god, bombers, but.
Yeah, it's just, it's the same for me. Like when I'm in local, like a lot of people go like, there could be something fishy here, right? So I have to watch out for that. But yeah.
You see the names, you know like bombers, right? Like Test has the one corp that has a lot of bomber FCs in it, so people recognize that. But like the thing I like about bombing is like once you initiate warp, like your path is locked, right? So hope I'm not set up. Every time you warp, right?
Yeah, well, that's what we try to in the Great Violence 4-timers. We try to, have them travel home, jump into a clean system, have them initiate warp, and then in that time, or like have them jump into a clean system, and while they jump in, we bridge in too, so they don't realize actually we're coming in too, with like 30-40 bombers, and then quickly set up on the gate, and then they land, and we can take bomb, or we can, like there's a bubble up, usually. And but there's so many fucking jackdaws and defenders, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Fuck me.
But I mean, I did it then anyway, like I think like 3 times or so, and we killed some stuff that one time. But there's not much you can do if there's like literally 200 jackdaws on the gate, just like covering their dudes. I'm like, come on, just fucking jump the gate.
One of my problems. You put jackdaws on a gate, and I know like jackdaws are anti-support, like anti-bomber and stuff, but that's why I don't like the defender launches being less than bomb cooldowns. Because like if you're a bomber, you're only bombing, right? Like you bomb, you warp off, you reset, you wait, right? Like at least other fleets get to like constantly fight and do stuff between bomb runs. Like if you're a bomber, like you bomb and then you wait, you bomb and you wait. Like you get to watch everything, but like you're not actively involved in it. So. At least defender launchers, like you guys are engaged the entire time, so it's kind of still think it's silly. The cooldown is less than a bomb.
That might be just the worst part of what I've seen bombers. Like some fights, you just never get the chance, right? You just sit there on grid, just waiting for that moment that never happens.
It's for hours, never get a good opportunity, and it just doesn't happen because they're changing grid all the time, or there's bubbles, or whatever reason. Like, yeah, you definitely can waste a lot of time doing it. It's not so bad as the FC because you kind of observe everything and can help coordinate and stuff. But I do feel bad for the bomber guys that are just sitting there for ages between runs, not doing anything.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. I always feel like, oh my god, I'm letting these guys down. But if there's nothing I can do, right? And everyone, and then you probably have the same thing. At like a certain time, everyone goes like, just fuck it. Like, let's just swoop in and try. Know it's fucking pointless, but you still do it at some point. You're like, okay, fucking throw your bomb and hope for the best. And you know it's not going to work, but like, what are you going to do?
like as an FC, like there's two things that are really valuable to me, and that's my fleet members' ships. Like I know we're playing a space game and ships are meant to blow up, but like ships represent time. It takes time to get them, so I care about their ships, even if I am gonna like I might throw them into a fire because it's needed or whatever. But like I care about their assets and I care about their time, so I don't want them to be sitting there for ages not doing anything. So like part of my job is to be like a content provider or an entertainer. So yeah, it's definitely difficult when there's no opportunities to bomb.
Yeah, I mean, bombers also are quite cheap, so I'm not sure if I like follow this line that they should be you should be unwilling to throw them around so much.
Yeah, like I am willing to throw them around, but like I definitely value their ships as like ships because like and maybe this is just me as an FC, but like I don't want to lose stuff unnecessarily. So I'm kind of more conservative when it comes to like the runs I might do or something.
Yeah, I think it adds up quickly if you have like 50-man bomber fleets, like every day, and you whelp them every day. It becomes that's 100 bombers in 2 days, and in 4 days suddenly you have 200 bombers you whelp. That's a lot of ISK suddenly, right?
And it like takes effort to replace their ships and everything. It's just a lot of work that if I don't want to lose them unnecessarily, I do this multiple times almost every single day. So like we're throwing a lot of bombs, a lot of ships. So it's not something that I want to be just throwing away unnecessarily.
Mara says let's lessen the dread. I agree. Just the ISK value wise, I agree. But at the same time, it's exactly what Sieku just said, right? People have to get new bombers, and it's annoying, and like all that stuff, and then get them back set up, and it all adds to it. Right? There's a price on that too.
I don't care about the efficiency. It's just the effort and the fact that there's people's ships that they own, right? Like, I'm responsible for them is how I view it. So it's definitely not simply like, oh, it's just 50 mil, throw it away or whatever. Like, it's a little bit more than that for me, at least.
Yeah.
I wonder what change could be made to the defend launcher which makes it a little bit more like balanced. Because I think right now it's just too easy to use.
A little more.
I would just love it 20 to 30 seconds more than a bomb. Like that'd be a small change that I think would make a huge difference. Like even 15 or 20 seconds would be like small enough that it's difficult, but still enough, distance where it's possible.
Yeah, I agree, right? So if you have a full ejector fleet sitting on a gate or whatever, wherever they sit, right? You bomb them with everything you have, they have to use all the defenders. They then know we've got so and so long till they can bomb us again, and we have to, there's not, there's a little time window where they can hit us and we can't defend. So I think it's fair in that regard. It's not OP because they have more than a minute to then, get the fuck out and, try to not get bombed, right?
I mean, I already have like desk. I time like bomb runs and like bubbles and cooldowns and stuff. Like I think most FCs probably have some similar like timing mechanism, right? So like if you're worried about bombs, you just time it, right? You time your defender launchers, saying that, hey, like okay, this is my 30-second window of vulnerability, and like if you're an FC, you should probably understand that anyway, in my opinion. So there are ways around that would make it a little more interesting, a little more dynamic, rather than just being N+1 F1.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe, I mean, so the change the notification changed. It seems like they were adding bombers and maybe tech monflix. We should talk about that in a second too, I guess. But so they were adding bombers with the thought of like it's a little bit of a buff for them. And I agree, it's a little bit of a buff in general, because like even if you can't warp in cloak or you can't activate a cloak, you can still get the same warp as before, bubble clean, and then activate it and get out of bubble. So it's like it's a bit of a buff. So that kind of tells me that maybe they're looking at bombers and the dynamic and stuff like this and how they could like get the sweet spot and get them back in, like not in a super dominant role. And maybe the defender stuff is the way to go there, right? Nerf the defenders a little bit to give bombers a little bit of an opening, right? And I think like a 30-second window, it's not too much to ask, really.
I'd also like to see like the hacks speed changed a little bit, like lowered a little bit, but that's kind of like that probably has other ramifications besides bombing. But right now it seems like
I think you're open for too much there.
Yeah, I know.
What about like other types of bombs as well? Like maybe like a fast-moving bubble bomb or something. Yeah, something like that. That'd be quite cool, I think, because then that would basically like mitigate the hack speed completely, right?
Yeah, I think like the first AT I was a part of, one of the AT ships had like a bonus to web bombs, And like they changed it later, but like as soon as I saw that, I was so hopeful because like they already have the burst projector mechanic, so like you could in theory add like a web bomb or a target paint bomb or other stuff, and that'd be phenomenal.
Something that's as fast as a void bomb, or maybe a little bit faster, that also could like do like TP bombs, stuff like that. Because then you can like overlay lots of different things, right? You know, you can't really bomb, minions all very easily because of their sig as well. It's not just if they turn the props off, they have 200 sig or something, right? So like also you can't bomb AB options either because of the same kind of reason. Like it's much harder.
You know what I thought about before, and this is just a random thing, and you might just be able to poke like massive holes into this, but why isn't it possible to just adjust the speed of your bombs, right? Yeah, so the further I bomb, basically, or the slower I set my bombs, the more travel time it has, right? Because it's slower, it kind of makes sense, right? So you can maybe bomb 100 km, but it's so slow, everyone's gonna see that coming for like half an hour, right? But then you can also bomb 16 km, right? Which is just barely in front of you. But therefore, it's way faster.
If I can set my default warp distance, if I can set my default bomb distance, oh boy.
Yeah, what would that be? Like, so
I kind of feel like everyone's just gonna go in like super close with that. Like, I don't see the advantage of going like 100 kilometers.
No, yeah.
That's why.
Unless, for example, they increase damage with distance. So like, the closer you are, the less damage it does.
That'd be really cool too.
Well,
like,
it's a safer distance, right?
If it goes so slow, that'd be really easy to avoid, and that'd be a really interesting change. Although, like any fleet that anchors up on a fax would be really vulnerable to that.
Or maybe radius, like do it from further away, have a bigger radius, something like that. I don't know. But then you won't be able to overlap so easily, maybe. So.
Like I could absolutely project problems by doing that, by like bombing a fax. Like fleets that are anchored on a fax that can't move would be really vulnerable to long distance bombing. But at the same time, maybe they should be because they're anchored on fax. I don't know.
Yeah. That was just a thought, right? And then also it gives room for people to fuck up, right? Like how many, like out of 100 dudes that you have in bomber fleets, like how many are gonna set the wrong like bomb speed and all that stuff? Like let's say 10%. That's probably in like a big fleet. Yep, that happens. So
I would love to see like 200k bombers, like a bigger thing. Right now, it's very niche and difficult to implement. But like, if you could put up bombers at like 200k and still apply torps regularly, that'd be really interesting. I think. Because torps take forever. So like, you could put bombers super far out and actually use the torps like that. That'd be really cool. But
yeah, imagine there's a bomb run coming in from like 100 km or so. And everyone's like, oh shit, there's a bomb run coming in. Okay, it's going to be here in like 5 minutes, right?
Kind of like
brace for impact.
Asking your facts, like, what's his timer on the on the triage?
That'd be really interesting to like try to de-siege the thing before the bombs get there. Wouldn't that be like a fascinating mechanic? Like that could be something they use with like the heavy bombs too, like as an option when you introduce them.
Heavy
fire them from away. They take forever to target. They're difficult to like align perfectly and everything, so it'd be a challenge. But you could do huge damage if you could pull it off. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, the heavy bombs are also another thing, right? Like they talked about it kind of, but I think they were looking at the reaction from the community. Like I think at the time, that's probably when we had the first podcast, right? Wasn't that around the time? Didn't we talk about that when you were first on Sieku?
Yeah, I think so.
And I think we both were like, it's interesting, like, but the only info we had was like heavy bombs. So what were the details? Right? How fast did they travel?
Got any more details? It's been like a year, but
like I don't think they're working on it.
Give us 2 words and make the story yourself, basically. Like,
I mean, I'm cool with that too. Like, just I got lots of options for a heavy bomb launcher. It'd be fantastic, or heavy bomber or whatever. But
yeah, but the details, like travel speed, like that's what people don't think about, right? Like everything we talked about earlier, all these little things.
I remember these.
It'd be really interesting to be able to set like the distance or something.
I remember these heavy bombs were kind of like discussed in an era where like the cap and super cap meta was quite oppressive as well. So it's changed a little bit.
May not be needed anymore, but well, after we all lose all of our supers in some big throwdown or whatever.
It's not gonna happen, guys. Let's be honest.
I hate using supers, man. I'm just a bomber guy at heart. I don't do much else, but
I'm pretty similar, I guess. I'm not a capital guy.
Like I've FC'd them before. I've done big fleets. I still do big fleets sometimes, but at the heart of it, I enjoy running bombing. That's what I really enjoy in this game. So
Yeah, the quick and like the sneaky stuff.
The only thing I like doing is dread
techniques.
bombing, but beyond that, I don't really bother with caps that much.
Well, dread bombing, I don't know when we're gonna see the next dread bomb, like serious dread bomb. I think everyone's looking at it and saying, nah.
Yeah.
I mean, even now, like we're back to the era where like a single cap kill is actually like kind of a victory because they're way more expensive now. So it's like, you know,
I like that part about it.
Carrier, and I would throw that shit away. It didn't matter. Oh no, I love it. I think that caps should be a huge issue, but but everyone like stockpiled caps when they're cheap, right? So we have a long way to get through them all.
Yeah, I do like that part about it. Like getting one dread killed now feels way more exciting again, right?
Definitely. So, like ganking a carrier is way better. Back like 6 months ago, he killed carrier. It's like, okay, it's kind of an expensive start. Now exactly. It's like it feels like something.
Yeah, back when like fully fit dreads were like 1.8 billion, like okay, well, cool, but you know.
Great to throw around, but I highly approve of the making caps more rare change. But again, we got to get through the stash of caps that everyone has first.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Tech 1 freak stuff on the warp core, on the nullification stuff. I don't get it. I don't know why. Like I don't know why they put Tech 1 frigs there.
I don't like using Tech 1 frigates for nullification. Seems kind of silly.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't get what the use case is.
I mean, the entire point of training into a scepter was to be able to travel, right? Like, at least for my early alts, it was like, okay, let's get to scepter because I can move about safely. So now it's like T1 frigates can do it now. Okay.
Yeah, but
I can't think of like.
Yeah, but the big problem is very clear is with the frig bay, right? A battleship in like let's say, yeah, let's say you have a battleship doctrine, you can save your pot always then, or maybe is that a good thing, right? I would argue maybe you want nullsec groups to use implant sets, and
I'm not sure if you can easily save it though, because you still have to activate the module on a tick, right? So
you still have session change, which is rough too.
Yeah, you still got time where you can still be lockable.
But at the same time, I would argue it definitely increases your chances like significantly, right? So maybe out of 100 battleships you lose, right now you would lose 90% of those pots. But with the changes now, maybe you only lose like 30% of those pots. And then suddenly maybe you look at them and say, okay, certain battleship doctrines, they're already so expensive, we might as well put like, I don't know, a slave set in there, or what is it called again? Amulets, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it is viable. Maybe that's what they want to do with it. Like maybe because I'm thinking of like what is the reasoning behind the Tech 1 thing, like the Tech 1 frig thing. Why?
But if that's the reason, why not just add scepters to battleships? Like if that's your reason, then why not just allow interceptors to be used in the ship bay once the change happens?
Well, yeah, good point, I guess.
If that's the only reason, like maybe there's other reasons for it. Like if the reason is to escape battleship pods and just allow you.
Or even bombers. Buff bombers a little bit more. So if you die in your battleship, you can just like do a Hail Mary bomb run and get the fuck out.
I support this.
Imagine the chaos, 2 battleship fleets killing each other at like 30 km from each other, and then every battleship you kill spawns a bomber that bombs you.
I will legit donate bombers to our massive praxis fleets that we all have now on both sides of this war.
Oh, yeah.
Let's all redeem our praxis is throw each other in a praxis blaster brawl and throw bombs.
I wonder when the praxis Hunger Games is going to happen. Like 100 praxises enter and then 1 leaves.
I know all my guys redeem their Gnosis and praxis like for us for I don't know what we're gonna do with them, but it's something memey like autocannon praxis or something with it or whatever.
Yeah, there's some good stuff you can do with them, like especially because you can redeem them somewhere, right?
Yeah, that's the problem. Like back in the day, you could buy those like capsuleer boxes that were like 5 meters cube. You could take your praxis anywhere based on that. But now it's like in my item queue, so it's even easier.
Yeah, they're also a fantastic hull for doing smart bombing from because they're so huge.
Well, don't say shit. That's what we use for like ghost bombs and stuff.
Yeah, I know.
It's easy to scale into.
We've been chemoing practices all the time. That's a great chemo doctrine, but or smart bomb, whatever doctrine. But don't give that away.
Yeah, they're great. Macarils might be the only hull that's like slightly better. 1 extra like high slot and a little bigger.
How big
So
is a
as soon as you
Macario?
see a Macario warp into you, like the model is really big and they're fast, so they can actually keep up with hack
Yep.
doctrines. You just like
Yeah.
anchor with them and just smart bomb away. It's pretty nasty.
I'm not sure if the Macario is bigger though, because the axial length on the Praxis is like 2.4k. I think that's the same as Macarial, or maybe Macarial's like
Hmm.
2.2.
Macarios are more dangerous because they're so fast. Like they
Yeah, I
warp
think that's the
faster
speed
and
thing.
they can move faster. So
Oh,
it's
maybe
like
they're the same
not only are
size.
they a big hole, but they also can keep up with you and keep it playing for longer, which is another danger.
Yeah. Well, maybe they are the same speed. Alright guys. I think we're almost at exactly an hour and a half, which is kind of what we aim for. I would say if someone has a really good question in chat, now's the time. Make it a good one though. But other than that, I think we covered everything, and I enjoyed it very much. I think I kind of regret giving all my tricks away, but hey, you know.
Dude, as soon as we're done here, I'm gonna go practice.
Have at it, and let me know how it worked out.
Oh, you'll see. It works out. You'll see.
Yep. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And
Yeah, fun.
yeah, see you in 3-D, 1DQ, wherever, right? And
Yeah, sounds great, guys. See you on the battlefield. Thanks again for having me on here.
yeah, and good luck. All right, and the guys on stream. I'm not sure if I actually updated the skin code. I hope I did. I think I did actually. So whoever gets it first, congrats. You guys are muted. And thanks for the subs, and thanks for hanging out, guys. And I'm gonna have a look who we can host, and see you guys on the next one. Next one's gonna be on a Friday again. Oh yeah, by the way, I should have said earlier, Miranda was just busy with work and was just too tired. Right? On a Friday she can do it, but like on a Thursday she has to get up super early next day, so she skipped this one. So see you guys on Friday.